Chapter 1. The Forgotten Letter. Have you ever found something that changed your life forever? For 14-year-old Elijah Carter, that moment came on a sweltering summer afternoon in Philadelphia. The attic was like most attics, dusty, dim, and filled with forgotten treasures. Sunlight streamed through a small window, dancing with particles of dust in the air. Elijah wasn't supposed to be up there, but curiosity had always been his weakness. That's when he saw it. Tucked away in the darkest corner was an old trunk, its leather cracked with age. His heart raced as he traced his fingers over the brass nameplate. William Carter, 1876, his great-great-grandfather's trunk. Inside, beneath layers of yellowed newspapers and faded photographs, something caught his eye. A weathered envelope sealed with wax, bearing words that made his breath catch, to be opened only on the 4th of July. The thing about discoveries like this is that they're never just about what you find. They're about where they lead you. And this envelope? It was about to take Elijah on a journey he never expected, deep into the heart of American history. But here's the real question. What do you do when you find a letter that's waited over a century to be read? Do you respect the date it specifies, or does the weight of history in your hands become too tempting to resist? For Elijah Carter, standing in that dusty attic, holding a piece of his family's past, this wasn't just about finding a letter. It was about uncovering a mystery that had been waiting generations to be solved. And sometimes, the most important journeys begin with the simplest discoveries. What secrets could this letter hold? What stories were waiting to be told? Well, that's where our adventure really begins. Chapter 2. Spirit of 76, on a sweltering Philadelphia afternoon in 1776, a young drummer boy named Isaiah Carter stood in the shadows of Independence Hall, his heart pounding as fiercely as the rhythms he played. I was there, watching history unfold through eyes that weren't allowed to participate in its making. The air was thick with tension and possibility as elegant carriages arrived one by one, carrying men in powdered wigs and fine coats. They called themselves patriots, speaking of liberty and freedom, while people who looked like me remained in chains. Yet something extraordinary was happening. I could feel it in my bones. I remember the scratching of quills against parchment, the hushed whispers, and the weight of destiny hanging in the chamber. John Hancock's bold signature first, then others followed, each pen stroke declaring defiance against the most powerful empire in the world. Though I was just a drummer boy, I understood the magnitude of what I witnessed. But here's what haunts me still. As I watched these men pledge their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, I realized that freedom isn't a single moment frozen in time. It's not just words on parchment or a signature in ink. Freedom is a living, breathing thing that must be nurtured and protected. That's why I'm writing this letter, hoping it finds its way to future generations. To you, my descendants, I say this. Independence isn't inherited like a family heirloom. It must be earned again and again, fought for by each generation with the same fierce determination that filled that room in Philadelphia. The revolution we started isn't over. The dreams we dared to dream aren't fully realized. But I heard the first notes of Freedom's song that day, and I've been playing it ever since, hoping you'll continue the melody. Remember, as long as there are those willing to stand for what's right, the spirit of 76 lives on. Chapter 3. Fireworks and Forgotten Truths. The scorching July sun beat down as Elijah clutched the weathered letter in his hands, his heart racing with each word he read. He couldn't believe what he'd discovered hidden away in that dusty corner of their attic. Come on, it's obviously fake. Nia rolled her eyes, barely looking up from hanging patriotic streamers for their neighborhood block party. But something about the letter felt different, felt real. Let's just check, okay? Elijah insisted, pulling up their dad's laptop. As the familiar sounds of their neighbors setting up grills and lawn chairs drifted through the window, the siblings dove into their research. Their casual skepticism turned to stunned silence as military records filled the screen. There he was, Isaiah Thompson, 54th Massachusetts Infantry, the same unit mentioned in the letter, the same battles, the same dates. This wasn't just any old piece of paper. This was a window into a past they never knew existed, a story that had been waiting decades to be told. As fireworks began to pop in the distance, Elijah and Nia shared a look. Their 4th of July had just become about much more than hot dogs and sparklers. They had stumbled upon a piece of history that would change everything. Chapter 4. Echoes from the Battlefield. The stories of war often focus on the famous generals and epic battles. But today, I want to tell you about the unsung heroes. The ones whose sacrifices echo through time, yet whose names rarely make it into our history books. My grandfather, a history teacher for over 3 decades, once sat me and my sister down and shared something profound. He told us about soldiers who fought with everything they had, not just for a flag, but for a promise of what America could be. There were black soldiers who fought for freedom while their own families lived in chains. Native American warriors who defended lands that were once theirs. Poor farmers who left their fields, and immigrants who battled for a country they had just begun to call home. These heroes didn't fight for glory or recognition. They fought because they believed in something bigger than themselves. Their stories, passed down through generations like precious heirlooms, remind us that courage knows no color and bravery has no borders. So next time you hear about the great battles of history, remember, behind every victory, behind every defeat, there were thousands of untold stories, countless sacrifices, and dreams of a better tomorrow. Chapter 5: Time Capsule. Have you ever wondered what secrets lie buried beneath the soil of America's most historic places? Well, this incredible journey started with a simple letter that changed everything. Hidden within its aging pages was a cryptic message pointing to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, a place where American history runs as deep as the roots of its ancient trees. When our family decided to take an impromptu road trip to Valley Forge, none of us expected to uncover a genuine piece of Revolutionary War history. But there we were, following clues that led us to a specific tree, its bark scarred with mysterious markings. As we dug beneath its sprawling roots, our fingers touched something leather, an old pouch that hadn't seen daylight in centuries. Inside, we found something extraordinary, a weathered map and the personal journal of a soldier named Isaiah. His words transported us back to the brutal winter of 1777, telling the raw, unfiltered story of what his unit endured during the Revolutionary War. Through his eyes, we weren't just reading about history, we were living it. And this was just the beginning of our adventure, as every page of Isaiah's journal seemed to hold another clue to an even bigger mystery. Chapter 6: Ghosts of Liberty. Have you ever wondered about the untold stories behind America's fight for independence? The ones that never made it into our history books? Well, let me tell you about a remarkable discovery that changed everything we thought we knew. When Elijah and Nia found that weathered old journal, they had no idea they were about to unlock a window into the past that would leave them breathless. Through those yellowed pages written in fading ink, they didn't just read about the revolution, they lived it. They felt the bitter cold of Valley Forge, where soldiers' footprints were traced in blood on the snow. They heard the deafening roar of musket fire and the rallying cries of patriots. But among all these accounts, one story stood out, that of Samuel, Isaiah's closest friend. Samuel wasn't just another soldier. On that fateful day, when bullets filled the air like angry hornets, he saw a fallen comrade and didn't hesitate. Without thinking of himself, he charged through the chaos to drag the wounded man to safety. That split-second decision cost Samuel his life. But the soldier he saved? He went on to become one of the very men who signed the document that would birth a nation. Sometimes the greatest acts of liberty come from those whose names history forgot. And now, through this journal, their sacrifices echo once again.
Enjoying the video, correct? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell. Please leave your feedback, hit like, share the content.
Chapter 7: The Modern Revolution. You know, every story has multiple sides, and sometimes the most powerful ones are the ones we rarely hear. Let me tell you about Elijah, a young filmmaker who stumbled upon his family's incredible legacy. While digging through old photographs and letters in his grandmother's attic, he discovered a truth that would change everything. His ancestor, it turns out, played a crucial but unsung role in America's fight for independence. It wasn't the story you'd find in typical history books. It was deeper, more personal, and surprisingly relevant to today. This discovery lit a fire in Elijah's heart. He picked up his camera and began crafting The Other Side of Independence, a short film that would challenge how we see our shared history. It wasn't just about his ancestor anymore. It became a powerful lens through which to view the countless overlooked heroes who helped build this nation. When he shared it on social media, something remarkable happened. The film didn't just get views, it sparked conversations, opened eyes, and reminded us that America's story is woven from countless threads of diverse experiences and contributions. Sometimes it takes a fresh perspective to help us see the full picture of who we really are. Chapter 8. The parade today was different from all the other 4th of July parades I've attended. Sure, the same red, white, and blue banners lined Main Street, and the familiar scent of hot dogs and cotton candy filled the air. Kids still waved their sparklers, and the high school band still played those patriotic tunes we all know by heart. But this year, my brother Elijah stood on that wooden platform, hands slightly trembling as he held Isaiah's weathered journal. The crowd, thousands strong, fell silent as he began to speak. I watched his confidence grow with each word, his voice carrying across the square. Reading those powerful words our great-grandfather wrote decades ago, freedom is not a date, it's a duty. In that moment, the parade wasn't just about celebration anymore. Looking around at the faces in the crowd, I could see those words sink in, touching something deep within each person there. Sometimes the most powerful messages come from the simplest truths, passed down through generations, waiting for the right moment to be heard again. Chapter 9. Freedom is for everyone. Freedom rings differently for each of us, but its melody touches every heart that beats for something greater than themselves. Let me tell you about a small town that understood this truth in the most remarkable way. You see, most places celebrate their history with grand monuments to generals and presidents, those whose names echo through textbooks and time. But this town chose a different path. They looked past the obvious heroes, beyond the familiar faces, to find a story that would remind us what freedom truly means. In the spring of 2023, they commissioned a statue, not of a decorated commander or a wealthy patriot, but of a 13-year-old boy named Isaiah Carter. Isaiah wasn't born into privilege or power. He was just a kid with a drum and a dream, who walked miles through mud and snow, keeping time for an army that fought for everyone's tomorrow. Isaiah never asked for payment, never demanded recognition. He simply believed that freedom wasn't just for the wealthy or the powerful, it was for everyone. With every beat of his drum, he reminded tired soldiers why they fought, why they persevered, why they believed. Some folks questioned the choice. Why honor a drummer boy, they asked. What about the generals, the strategists, the famous faces we all know? But that was exactly the point. Freedom isn't just about the people whose names we remember. It's about every single person who believes in it enough to march toward it, no matter how small their role might seem. Today, Isaiah's statue stands in the town square, his bronze hands forever poised over his drum. Children stop to look up at him, asking their parents about the boy who is just like them, who helped shape a nation's destiny. And in those moments, they learn that freedom is not just a word in their history books. It's a song that anyone can help play, a dream that anyone can help build. Because that's what Isaiah knew all along. Freedom is for everyone. And sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who march not for glory or gold, but simply because their hearts tell them it's right. Chapter 10. Fireworks over freedom. The summer night wraps around us like a warm blanket as we stand on the rooftop, waiting. My son Elijah, just 12, clutches a weathered piece of paper in his hands, a letter that's been passed down through 5 generations of our family. Earlier today, he asked me why we celebrate Independence Day, and I found myself sharing more than just the usual story of 1776. You see that letter he's holding? It was written by his great-great-great-grandfather, a man who fought not in the Revolutionary War but in the Civil War. A man who believed so deeply in what America could be that he risked everything for it. The letter speaks of dreams bigger than himself, of a nation still struggling to live up to its promises, and of hope that burned brighter than any battlefield fire. I watch Elijah's face in the gathering dusk, remembering how I felt when my father first showed me that same letter. The city around us hums with anticipation, thousands of families just like ours waiting for the show to begin, each of us carrying our own stories, our own pieces of the American tapestry. The first firework screams into the sky, and Elijah jumps slightly. I place my hand on his shoulder as the explosion paints the clouds in brilliant gold. More follow, red, white, and blue cascading across the night like shooting stars. Each burst seems to echo the words in that old letter, speaking across time about courage, about change, about the constant work of building something better. As fireworks explode over the city skyline, Elijah looks up, holding the original letter tight. "This is what independence means," he whispers. "Not just history, but legacy. And as the sky bursts into red, white, and blue, the Carter family stands together, grateful, proud, and aware that the story of America is still being written. Because that's the thing about freedom. It's not just something that happened on one July day long ago. It's something we inherit, something we protect, and something we must constantly work to expand. Every burst of light above us reminds me that our nation's story isn't finished. It lives in letters like ours, in moments like these, and in the hearts of young people like Elijah who will carry it forward into tomorrow.